Hi, everybody. Welcome back to those who've been hanging with me some time, and welcome to those of you who are new to my channel. I'm AdelaLavine, intuitive medium, and obviously I have a guest with me today. This is Stephanie Ray. Ooh, I rhymed. I brought her on because I have had so many of you ask me about anxiety and stress and everything that's going on in the world. And I'm a reader and I'm an intuitive, and I do a lot of this stuff and help people through whatever they need help with. But I wanted to bring on a professional in this arena because I feel like that's more ethically responsible to talk to someone who's licensed, trained for this. And she is a licensed art therapist who helps people with stress and anxiety and a little bit of trauma. And she's going to talk to us about how art therapy helps with these things and simple things you can do at home to help you through those times. So here's Stephanie Ray. Hi.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming on. I've known you for quite some time, and we finally made this happen. So I'm going to be the interviewer and get people to, let people get to know what you do and, a little bit about you and all that. So let's start with what is it? What is art therapy?
So art therapy is in the field of mental health. So I'm also trained as a licensed mental health counselor. My master's degree is in both art therapy and counseling. I know, right? Fancy.
Fancy. I love it. Yeah.
So it is under that umbrella. And it basically is like you show up to an art therapist, and instead of just talking to me, we're going to use art materials to express and to communicate with each other. Not that we don't talk at all, but we actually use art to facilitate the healing process or to de-stress and relax and things like that. But yeah.
And which came first for you, the therapist in you or the art in you, or were they simultaneously? Like, I always like to kind of talk to people about understanding and remembering who you are and how you tick and all of that. And when people are looking for a path, I think, even just kind of adding that to this equation, it's cool that this is an amazing, interesting path. So it would be nice if you could share, like, how did you find this path?
Absolutely. So the way I found it was I had a pretty big trauma, which was I drove home from work one night and my house was on fire.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that was pretty traumatic. And that led me to find a therapist. And in therapy, I started making marks on paper. That's what I call it, because I was not an artist. And through therapy, I developed myself as an artist. And like behind me, that's one of my paintings. And I ended up becoming an artist, getting my undergrad in visual art. And then over the years, just using it for my own healing, I taught process art classes. And then later in life, I decided to become a therapist. But I think I've been a therapist since I was a child.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like it's like an innate intuition, in you. And then do you feel that art is, for people who kind of, I always say this, and I think for all you artists out there, I believe this, that, artists are pretty much to me similar to what I do, like conduits, that kind of you're pulling something from the ether, something from the collective conscious, and putting it into something tangible. Do you feel that way?
I do feel that way. I think that, with art therapy, there's a little bit of a differentiation because we're more focused on the process rather than the product. A lot of times when we're doing our art as a profession, we are looking for an outcome, even though I think as an artist, it's even more important to stay in the process as well. But yeah, I mean, when I am painting, especially something abstract, it feels like it just comes through me onto the canvas.
Right.
Absolutely. I agree with that for sure.
So let's get to the art therapy part, because people are definitely going through it. There's something that I've noticed is in my readings in the past few months is that everyone's feeling overwhelmed. Everyone says they feel like they're kind of lost. People kind of even feel unmotivated. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise considering everything we've gone through. Two questions. I'm going to do two questions at once. One, have you noticed this in, your working with your clients? Have you noticed something, a difference? Because maybe that'll help people feel like, oh, it's not just me, there is something going on. And secondly, how can you explain to people like a way or a simple way let's just start with one simple way, somebody can do something at home to help, let's say with anxiety. Let's just isolate anxiety, because that's the big one people want to know.
Gotcha. One of the things that's really important about anxiety is staying in the moment, because a lot of times anxiety gets driven about either thinking about the past or worrying about the future, which is super easy to do right now, right?
Yeah.
It used to be fun, like we were planning our futures, and now it's like, well, I don't really want to plan that because I don't know what's going to happen. And that's like, even saying that out loud starts giving me anxiety.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we have to focus on is really being in this now moment and not letting ourselves go there or go there. And the way that art helps with that. And so when I say art, I'm just talking about making marks on paper. Again, I just want to reiterate that anybody can do this. You don't have to be like, have artistic
And
motivation.
I'm going to interrupt you for a minute to let everybody know that Stephanie's going to show us on my Patreon. She's going to actually take people through an exercise. So if you go to my Patreon, if you're on my Patreon, you'll know. If you're not, you should join. But she's going to show it. We're going to explain it here for you guys today, but she's going to show like the steps of what to do. And quickly leave in the comments below if you relate to what she's saying, especially about the anxiety. And I'm going to just add, as a conversation piece, I don't relate to the future part because I'm obsessed with the future and I do not give up my idea of the future. However, listening to you, it is a problem, even though I can see things, and that's why I'm obsessed with it. Living in the moment is a mantra that I hear from the other side over and over and over again. So
here we are, living in the moment.
Yeah. So
Confirmation.
Confirmation, right? Okay. So
Yeah.
Please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm glad that you said that, because that's very important. And it's really all we have, I mean, you can see the future, but not all of us can. So let's be in the moment, right? And I know. So one of the things, there's many things we can do, but the thing that came to me before we started talking today was just grabbing a piece of paper, picking a shape. Okay. For me, I tend to go to circles, but any shape that you want. And I want you to draw this shape on a piece of paper repetitively. So you can start off with, let's just say, one big circle and then fill it up with a bunch of other size circles. And you can just use a pen and a paper. It doesn't have to be any art materials or anything like that. It's just grab a pen, grab a piece of paper and fill up the whole piece of paper with just shapes. And I like to do just one shape and just let that shape kind of take over and see what happens with it. And now while you're doing that, what happens is you're in the moment because you have your pen and your paper and you have to be there and concentrate on drawing that shape. Like you're using your brain in a different kind of way, possibly, right? If you're not an artist all the time. So you're making yourself focus. And we do know, like evidence-based research, that 45 minutes of creation can reduce cortisol levels and reduce stress. 45 minutes is a long time, but you would be surprised. You get into this flow state and all of a sudden the time is
not a long time, considering you guys are watching TikTok or watching TV, and we've all done it. And 45 minutes goes like that. Can you explain cortisol levels? What does that mean?
So that's something in your brain that kind of goes up and creates kind of a system of making your body in fight, flight, or freeze. So it creates stress on your system, right? Okay. That's not real. So your body's responding to a threat that's not there, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another big question I get, and I know this is kind of a big one where I'm gonna slice this in my head. I'm slicing it down to a more smaller version. Since people on this channel, or people who come to, to me, are interested in, paranormal things and spiritual things, as a therapist, because there's a lot of people are surprised that there's so many, I read for a lot of psychologists and a lot of, kind of mind science-based people. Mm-hmm. How can someone feel like, if they're feeling like, I'm feeling very sensitive, I'm feeling very intuitive, and is that, or is it, am I really sensing and being intuitive, or am I having anxiety? You're an intuitive person yourself. So how do you kind of, how would you help some, give a, like a small little kind of like check in with yourself this way, meaning like, am I running away with all of my anxiety, or am I really just kind of feeling an intuition about what's, my day or
Right,
something
right.
like.
Well, one of the things you're going to do is check in with your body, because
Okay.
normally if we're really sensitive and intuitive, we feel things in our bodies a lot of times. The anxiety a lot of times starts in our mind, like we start telling ourselves something or making, we have a story about something, right?
Right.
It's going to happen. It's usually something that I don't want to say like it's our fault we have anxiety, but our mind can make us get into that loop. So I think the difference is, where are you feeling that anxiety, right? Is it in your chest? Is it in your belly area? Kind of just checking in with yourself and getting to know yourself. That's part of it.
Okay.
And I do think that like when it's extreme, right? Like you have this sudden reaction or this buzzing kind of, I feel it like a buzzing that
Yeah.
won't really go away, when I shake it off and do all the things and it's still there. And sometimes I know that that's more of something I need to pay attention to rather than just feeling anxiety. But
Very good. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's in another confirmation is
Mhm.
that I always tell people, the difference. I call it like, when you have a fantasy where you're like telling the story, you're like, and then this is going to happen, and then I'm going to fall down, and then everyone's going to stare at me. And then you're like, really, I'm just kind of upset about walking in front of people. So it's really not those things are going to happen. And if it's my intuition, it might just be like, hey, you might want to remember like your phone or something, because maybe
Right.
that will help you in the situation, whatever. I'm just making this up, but it's very, tapered down. It's just kind of like you said, I call that a hit, what you just described. You get a hit. And so you just confirmed what I've told people. Like I can tell the difference for me is I've ran off into a whole storyline,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, that just seems unlike not like you have way too many details in this for this to
Yeah.
be true. Yeah. So that's really helpful. Okay. That's awesome. I don't know. I like confirmations, it makes me go
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. So my other question is, for people who kind of feel, we talked about anxiety and stress. If people are feeling triggered, we know that's like a term, that's a very popular term, obviously. And triggered is just like another way of getting the trauma coming back up. What can people do? Like, especially, I feel like that people are feeling so overwhelmed with so much information every day. It's something. What do you feel like people could do at home to help them, like when something like that pops up for them? Like they have to go online for work, or they have to like go to work and people talk about things and maybe it's like triggering them.
Right. So, I mean, first being aware of that, right? Like when you feel that jolt. I mean,
Right.
if you're using art or making marks on paper art to help you process that, one of the things that we can do that we're going to do on your Patreon is do some bilateral drawing. And what that involves is using two pens instead of one or two, whatever you want to use. And you'll be moving both hands at the same time, drawing different symbols and shapes and things like that. And what that does is engages both sides of the brain and kind of helps both sides of the brain talk to each other and really kind of calms down your nervous system some. Now, if you're in a situation where you don't have paper and pen, you can also do it by just moving your hands. So doing both of your hands in circles. And I know it may look kind of strange out in public, but
That kind of makes sense. It's kind of like chi, right? It's kind of
yeah,
like
yeah, you're moving the
yeah.
energy.
Is
Yeah,
that why those what are those things called that people like to play with?
those poppy things.
Fidgets, like fidgets and poppy things. Is that why they're so popular? Do you
Yeah,
think?
I mean, I think that, anxiety has that kind of buzzing energy with it, right? And I think, yeah, that's like us trying to offset it. And also people with ADHD use those to help them concentrate. Like they have to have something to fidget with because their
Right,
brain both things, right, to focus.
right,
But
right.
yeah, I mean, I think we have to limit our information, but when we can't limit our information, I think like the message that's coming through right now for me to say to y'all and for myself as well is that, we really need to be able to hear ourselves because all this stuff's coming at us. And I don't really think they want us to hear ourselves because when we hear ourselves, we're awakening, right? And so when we take that moment to do the circles on the paper, even though that Stephanie lady, that sounds kind of whatever, I'm going to try it. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you do these things, something will come out for you. Like you'll start writing something that you didn't even know, but you have what you need inside of you know, and this is another way to access that.
Yes.
So I just think that's important.
Absolutely. Well, everyone knows I agree with that for sure. Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. That was very well put. I have a question for selfish reasons.
Okay.
What about sleep?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like not sleeping going on. Is there anything you can leave with everyone? Just kind of like we kind of like went through the rainbow of like the day, and now it's like night. And people are definitely talking about this a lot about sleep. And you can see there's so many sleep apps and so many things. Is there anything that there's no, like, I just want to be clear. We're not saying like Stephanie's like, here's a quick fix, you know, we're saying, and we're going to give her information if you're interested in working with her, and she has other things that are going on. So she's going to drop that all, and I'll have it in the description below. But obviously we're not saying that, but we want to give you little morsels of things you can nibble on to help you. So sleep is a real big thing. Like I believe like sleep, my theory is that when you go to sleep, you feel safe, right? And if you sleep well, it's like you're like, hey, everything's cool. And when you probably don't feel safe, it's maybe difficult. I have different reasons why sleep is a problem for me. It has totally to do with spiritual stuff. It has to do with I can't block that world out. So that's a whole different story. But I know a lot of people have talked about sleep. Is there anything you can say about that, perhaps?
I mean, I think it all kind of ties in again to like shutting down the information, at least, like an hour before you go to sleep is a huge thing. Because, all that, just from that point of view, like getting off your screens helps. Which is super hard. I know, because we want to lay there in bed and look at the thing, but it keeps us awake. It totally does. It's like, wake up. So, I have like rituals for nighttime. And for me, because I'm an artist, it includes drawing. And so sometimes I'll just, and sometimes just, I'm pretty abstract in my work right now. So I will just get like some crayons even, or some kind of chalk pastels or something, and just do something in my sketchbook. Like it doesn't even have to be anything, just whatever's there to come out. Like I always say, marks on paper. So moving color on paper, moving marks on paper, letting yourself release whatever it is you need to release for the day, and even have that as a practice. Like, okay, I'm going to release whatever's on my mind so that I can sleep. And again, you can pull back in that shape thing. You can make it all Z's and just kind of give, from the cartoon, like zzz.
Yeah.
I think just, so just like, bringing in a practice, right, of this type of stuff to help yourself. And it's a little more fun than just, the visualizations are great, listening to things. I have to listen to things to fall asleep. Just like guided visualizations, things like that.
Right.
But I do think having some kind of ritual that transitions you from your day into your bed, right?
Yeah.
Into that. It's so allowing. And I think, again, it's like super important
to have rituals do better with sleep. You're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes sense.
And I also think like we have to honor ourselves right now, and we have to help ourselves right now. And implementing these small things, they add up and then they help us. Right. But we are not at a place anymore in the world where we can just like go along and not do anything to take care of ourselves. There's too much coming at us, right? And it's the hardest of times and the best of times in some ways, depending on what you believe. But
that's the times, because we're moving into a new world and change, and we're ripping apart the old world, but it's a hard time to go through for sure.
And moving into that new world requires us to do new things, and things that maybe don't totally make sense to us, but we know that they might help, because Stephanie is saying, just kidding. No,
that was awesome. I loved it. Yeah.
But trying these things that are really basic, simple things that people have been doing for thousands of years. We just had to put them in a different form and say them in a different way. So I'm really not telling anybody anything that they if you just really think about it, like this is what people naturally do. People naturally create, people naturally make marks on papers and cook meals that aren't from recipes and do makeup and all the things, right?
Right.
Just kind of inviting yourself into that is going to change.
To let it flow through you,
Yeah.
whatever you're feeling, and come out through.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Letting those feelings. Yes. 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 Love that.
My last question that I feel that it's just, a question that kind of came to me while you're talking. Colors, like when we're looking at you, when I'm looking at you and see the blue, and I have like an artist, but you can't see her paint. It's just because of the way my set, you can't see her. You know, but when I look at the blue behind you, obviously it just feels super, for me, relaxing, because I love the ocean. It just reminds me like the ocean's popping up behind you. Are different, even just seeing colors, you think, like help people, like even if they were to paint their room like one color on the wall, or just seeing colors on paper, is that something?
I mean, there's a whole psychology of color, and in art therapy, when we've looked at studied color in art therapy, we see certain themes. But I do want to say this: when you are working with an art therapist, we are never analyzing your art. That's really important. Your art is your art. So I just want to say that, because sometimes that can scare people. Like, I don't want anybody to know what I'm thinking.
Right.
We're not doing that.
Point. That's a good point. Yeah. So she's not looking at your art going like, I know what you're thinking. Right.
Yes. So it really is your art. You're telling me the story. So, there is a psychology of color, and they have found blue as calming. And, that's going to be different for different brains though, right? We have all different kinds of brains. So the traditional, this means this, that means this. It really is, again, back to you. Like, what does it mean for you? Is the most important thing. So, there is the psychology of color, and you can learn about that. But I'm down with the blowing up the constructs. So, and creating our own path. And it really is an inner knowing. And I think that's what this time is about in a lot of ways,
Yes, perfectly said. Okay, so now for everybody, please let everybody know like all your information. We'll have it pop up here. We'll have it in the description, but let people know like where they can find you on social, websites, and I know you have some other stuff. So
all right. So there's several ways to work with me. You can find most of my information on my website. It's stephanierayarts.com, and you can email me from there. You can also look, there's going to be things across the top, so you can check out my art. You can check out if you want to see me individually. Also, I have something called the Art Flow Lounge, and that is my membership community where I do all of the expressive arts, because I'm also a yoga teacher. So I do meditation, yoga, art, and writing within that container. And we do like a live 1.5-hour workshop once a month, and I have a guest once a month. So you can learn all about the Art Flow Lounge as well. That's super fun. And on Facebook, I'm Stephanie Ray. I just use my personal Facebook, so I just have all the friends, so come join me. And then my Instagram is Steph Ray Arts.
Okay. So we'll have it all pop up here, and we'll have it in the description for sure. So contact her, and she'll talk to you about how to, if you want to do a one-on-one session with her, she'll talk to you personally about that in an email. So if you're interested, I just wanted you to let everyone know that that is a possibility, that you can work one-on-one with her. She has the Art Flow, which is more kind of like a group type setting where she has content basically that we say in these days, but as she's a therapist, so I think we could say information and help and things that, and exercises and people and guests. And it's like a constant, it's like having a little community to help you with your stress and anxiety and everything like that. And then she has her website where you can check all of that out. And if you want to book a session with her, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna promo her. That's what I'm gonna do.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad. And if you guys want to go over to my Patreon, I have something here. If you want to go over to my Patreon, she is going to show us, she's going to the things that she was talking about in this video, she's going to kind of display it for us so you can see what it is she's talking about. And for myself, I forgot to say this, but I'm still offering the 50% off of my readings, and the code 50 is here. I'm doing a class that you guys wanted me to do on remote viewing. Actually, it's about how to see the future and the past.
That's okay. Better to see it than wonder about it.
But I already did a remote view about the moment. So I'm trying to help you with, in my way of like, if you could see the future and the past, you can learn some things. But I think it's hilarious that this class is coming up when she's saying that, but listen to her about being in the moment for sure, 100%, because I've posted on TikTok many times that is what I hear from the other realm all the time. They tell me all the time that all they care about once they pass is they go over the moment. So thank you guys so much. Follow yourself. Thank you, Stephanie. Follow no one. Listen to your inner voice, and I'll see you soon.